Look around you. Safety, light, certainty. You walk home at midnight without a second thought. Your phone dies? No problem. The streetlights guide you. The darkness holds no terror. But close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. What if tonight every light went out? Not just for an hour, for 3 nights. No phones, no flashlights. No candles that last. Just darkness. Would you survive? Your ancestors wouldn't have asked that question. They knew the answer. And it depended entirely on one thing hanging in the sky. In the 1700s, if the moon disappeared for 3 nights in a row, entire villages would be found empty by morning. This isn't a legend, this is history. And today, I'm going to tell you why the moon wasn't just beautiful. It was the thin line between civilization and chaos. Imagine living in 1720. You're a farmer in rural France, a merchant in London, or a family in a German village. The sun is setting. And you know everyone knows that when that sun drops below the horizon, the world transforms. There was no electricity, no streetlights, no flashlights. Candles and oil lamps existed, yes, but they were expensive, dim, and dangerous. One spark could burn your entire home down. Most families had maybe 1 or 2 candles, and they saved them for emergencies. So when night came, most of the world went black. Not the darkness, where there's always a glow from somewhere. True darkness. The kind where you can't see your hand in front of your face, where sounds become monsters, where every shadow could be death. But there was one savior, the moon. On nights when the moon was full or even half visible, everything changed. You could see the path ahead. You could watch the tree line for movement. You could see someone approaching, friend or foe. The moon gave you agency in the darkness. Farmers planned their harvests around it. Harvest moons weren't romantic. They were survival. You worked through the night because the moon gave you just enough light to see. Travelers timed their journeys by the lunar calendar. Merchants, soldiers, messengers, they all waited for the moon. But then, there were the other nights. The new moon. The nights when clouds covered the sky for days. The nights when the moon vanished. Those nights had a name. The devil's darkness. And when those nights came, everything fell apart. In 1764, something began hunting in the forests of Gévaudan, France. They called it the Beast of Gévaudan. Some said it was a wolf. Others believed it was something worse. A demon, a werewolf, a creature sent by God to punish the wicked. Over 3 years, it killed more than 100 people. Men, women, children torn apart in the forests and fields. But here's what the records show. 80% of those attacks happened on new moon nights. This wasn't coincidence. Wolves and other predators had learned something. In total darkness, humans were helpless. We couldn't see them coming. We couldn't track them. We couldn't fight back. French naturalist Georges Louis Leclerc later wrote, "The wolf does not fear man in the light of the moon. But in total darkness, man becomes prey like any other." And it wasn't just wolves. In Eastern Europe, bears would raid villages on moonless nights, smashing through doors because they knew no one could organize a defense in the dark. In Scotland, wildcats extinct now were known to attack children who wandered out after dark during the new moon. Nature had adapted. Predators had learned, and humans? We were no longer apex, we were surviving. But the animals weren't the worst part, other humans were. In London, there was a gang called the Moon Curser Brotherhood. They operated between 1720 and 1730, and they had one rule: only strike on moonless nights. They would wait sometimes for weeks for the new moon. Then they'd descend on travelers along the highways leading out of London. In total darkness, their victims couldn't see them, couldn't identify them, couldn't fight back. Records show at least 40 murders attributed to the Moon Cursors. But the true number? Probably far higher, because in the dark, bodies disappeared. And it wasn't just organized crime. Across Europe, a horrifying pattern emerged in court records. From 1710 to 1760, murders inside the home spiked on moonless nights. Husbands killing wives, parents killing children, siblings killing each other. The defense was always the same. I didn't recognize them in the dark. In 1748, in Bavaria, a tailor named Johann Weiss stabbed his 22-year-old wife to death. When dawn broke and he saw her face, he collapsed. At his trial, he said, "In the dark, everyone becomes a stranger, even your own family." He was hanged. But the judge noted in his diary, "How many others have done the same? and never been caught. Scientists now understand something our ancestors learned through terror. Prolonged exposure to total darkness causes visual deprivation, hallucinations. When your brain receives no visual input, it starts inventing things. Shadows that move, voices that whisper, shapes that reach for you. Asylum records from the 1700s are filled with cases labeled moon madness or night fever. People, especially those living alone, would be found raving in the streets, claiming they'd seen demons, ghosts, or the Watchers. One German physician, Dr. Heinrich Kluge, wrote in 1755, "Isolation in darkness for more than 2 nights causes the mind to fracture. The patient sees what is not there and cannot see what is. They become strangers to themselves." Children suffered the most. Death rates for children under 10 spiked by 15 to 20% on new moon nights. Why? Because in their terror of the dark, they would flee their homes imagining monsters in the shadows and fall into wells, drown in rivers, or get lost in forests. Parish records from rural England show heartbreaking entries. Thomas, age 7, found in the mill pond. New moon. Believed he ran from shadows. Margaret, age 5, vanished on the night of no moon. Body discovered 3 days hence in the woods. The darkness didn't just kill bodies, it killed minds. But humanity is nothing if not adaptive. People created rituals, desperate, beautiful rituals to survive the moonless nights. In Ireland, villages would place large white stones at crossroads and outside homes. They called them moon stones. The idea? Even in darkness, you could feel your way along them, following the path home. Some of these stones still exist today, faded and forgotten. But they once saved lives. In Germany, communities built Nachtfeuer night fires at the center of villages. Families would take turns feeding the fire through the night, ensuring it never went out. The fire served 3 purposes: light to see approaching danger, warmth to gather around, a beacon so no one got lost. Records show that villages with Nachtfeuer had significantly lower crime and death rates during new moons. But perhaps the most haunting tradition came from France. Les Luneveilleurs, the moon watchers. These were volunteers, usually older men or women, who would stay awake all night during moonless periods, walking the village ringing bells. The bells served 2 purposes. They let people know someone was watching, and they oriented anyone lost in the dark. The moon watchers were revered. They were given food, respect, and in some villages, exemption from taxes. But in 1789, during the chaos of the French Revolution, a village near Lyon forced their moon watcher, a man named Etienne Moreau, to stop. They called it superstition, a waste of resources. That very night, 3 children disappeared. Their bodies were found a week later in the woods, mauled by animals. Etienne was reinstated immediately. He continued until his death in 1803. When he died, the entire village attended his funeral. His gravestone reads, "He watched when the moon could not." By the 1800s, everything changed. Gaslighting arrived. First in London, then Paris, then across Europe and America. For the first time in human history, we didn't have to fear the night. Crime rates dropped dramatically. Wolves were hunted to extinction in most of Europe. The moon cults, the night fires, the moon watchers, they all faded away. We had conquered darkness. But we forgot something. We forgot how much we needed the moon. How much it had shaped us, protected us, guided us. Today, light pollution is so severe that 80% of people cannot see the Milky Way from where they live. In major cities, you can barely see the moon at all. We've won. We've banished the darkness. But in doing so, we've also banished our memory of what it meant to be vulnerable. Our ancestors knew something we've forgotten. In the dark, humans were not the dominant species. We were prey. And perhaps, in some forgotten corner of the world where electricity hasn't reached, they still watch the sky. They still light their fires. They still ring their bells. Because they remember exactly what happens when the moon is gone. So the next time you look at the moon, remember, there was a time when that pale light was the only thing standing between you and absolute terror. When the moon disappeared, safety disappeared, sanity disappeared, and sometimes entire villages disappeared. The moon still watches. Do you?